Okay, so let's talk about the new way of deploying applications, right? So this is what I'm going to cover. So first let's understand our current scenario and also the current pain points we have in terms of the deployment, right? And then we talk about the new way of deploying applications in VS 2010, which is MS Deploy, right? So I'll take 1 minute to introduce myself. Probably this is the first time you're seeing me, right? My name is Joy. I'm from Sri Lanka, from Colombo. Right now I'm a SharePoint MVP from this year Jan. But I've been doing a lot of work presenting in TechEds as a C# MVP, right? So I work as a mentor for solid quality mentors, and I'm a Microsoft certified trainer too. So author, trainer. So the important thing here in this slide is the last bullet. You can make a note. You can note down my email, and if you're lazy and if you're tired, because towards the end of the day, just take a screen, picture using your mobile or using your camera. You can see 6 screens there. Just take a picture so you can write to me later, right? Okay, so let's talk about the new way of deploying applications. So it's nothing but VS 2010 and also the MS Deploy, right? So we are going to combine MS Deploy and VS 2010 to give you all of these things. Number one, consolidated web deployment. So what is consolidated web deployment? It's nothing but deploying your content, right? When you say content, we talk about IIS settings, all the permissions related to app pool, and also your database with the master data, or I would say initial data, and also the registry settings, right? So all these things matters when we talk about the deployment. Right now what we do all these things manually, right? Thanks to Visual Studio, we can easily deploy all our ASPX pages, all our CSS and things like that to IIS, right? So we are okay, we are good with that. But what about our database? And what about our registry settings? And what about our IIS settings, right? So that's why we go and do a lot of manual work, okay? So I hope you guys, when you are about to do a release, assume that your QA is asking a release for tomorrow, right? So you do everything, you create the, you deploy everything to the server, and you create bunch of script files and give it to the QA, and then you take off, right? Then tomorrow what will happen? When you go to office, your QA or your IT guy will be waiting with a list of questions or list of errors. He says, see, I couldn't get it working, right? So it's the time you to come and look at my PC or look at my server or testing server, get it working, right? Because we have a release or we have a demo tomorrow. So that's there, and also the environment specific configuration. So with this, we are introducing the real experience of deploying to your demo server, your testing server, your staging server, and also finally production server, right? Right now, we don't have that experience, right? We all talk about the staging servers concept and also the QA servers concept and now the production server, but there are a lot of manual work going on, right? So we are going to automate all these things, and also we talk about the reusable and simple web packages. So if we can deploy other applications as a zip file, right? So if I want to copy a set of files from my PC to Harish PC using a zip format, so why can't I copy, why can't I deploy, or why can't I just hand over the entire application, including ASPX, CSS, IIS settings, DB scripts, and also the sample data in form of zip. So that's the concept we talk about. And also we talk about one-click publish. We have click once deployment, right, for our .NET guys, for our WinApps and all the other applications. So now we are bringing one-click publish, right? It's not click once, it's one click, and with a cool feature called differential sync. So what we are going to do here is, you do the initial deployment, right? And after that you do the next release or next deployment. So this tool, this MS Deploy and also the VS 2010 is smart enough to identify what are the changes we have done, and what are the items, or what are the new files you have been added, what are the changes you have done in your solutions, in your database schema, and also in your IIS settings. Deploy only those changes, right? So we are not going to do a simple remove and redeploy thing. It will be a true differential sync. And we talk about the extensible and customizable experience. So this MS Deploy is completely on top of web publishing pipeline. we have three phases basically. First one is collect. Collect meaning we are going to collect, we are going to combine, we are going to gather all the informations in your solution, right, including your testing application, including your content, your images, your settings, right, sample scripts and all these things, including data. And then we will do the transform. That's the second phase. Transform in the sense, in your div box, you may have a lot of pages you have added in order for, in order to test, right. So you have been testing a lot of stuff. Think about you have added a MS test project in your solution, right. So you don't want to deploy the test project to the QS team or to the staging server. You just want to deploy only the application. So then we talk about removing some stuff and changing some items. So that's where the transformation comes in. And finally, we talk about the output in the WPP, web publishing pipeline, meaning we talk about deploying your application or providing output in any media. It could be Xcopy, it could be MS deploy, it could be FTP, right. So whatever it is, we are going to deploy it to your environment. And then we talk about the team build integration here. So probably you have worked with TFS and team build environment, right. So we are bringing the team build integration also with this deployment mechanism, so that you will be able to use the deploy or team build deployment workflow, and you will be able to customize wherever required, and also the web farm deployment. I hope you guys have gone through the web farm deployment, and you know how difficult it is, because you will be configuring a lot of front end servers and DMS and all these things, right. So we are going to give you the same experience for the web farm deployment, right. And then we talk about the site server snapshot and migration. This is also really important, because see, you deploy it to your demo machine, it works fine, perfect, no runtime errors, right, no exceptions in your browser. Now what you want to do is you want to take a copy of this demo server, right. So basically we are bringing the snapshot concept from the other teams to the deployment team as well. So we'll be basically taking a snapshot of this demo server. So if something goes wrong, the day I'm going to give a demo, right. So normally you go and do a dry run in the morning if the demo is in the evening. So if something goes wrong, if you're not getting the output, so you have the snapshot, you can use the snapshot and you can build a server quickly, right. So that's the concept we are bringing with the site and server snapshot concept. So this is what the MS deploy feature in VS 2010, okay. So let's talk about the team, what we have today. So we have business analysts in our team, right. So they are basically, okay, here I have a guy called Kim, right, he is the business analyst. So he wants things done, so here he right. So he comes with a lot of ideas, okay, he comes with a lot of ideas. He says, okay, Bill, let's do this, right. I have a vision to do this, right. So let's build this product, and then we can market. So sales guys are requesting this, so let's build this, right. So business analyst comes with a lot of ideas. He's a nice person, but at the end of the day we have to code, right. So that's why we have Bill here. So he is very good in Ajax, Web 4.0, and then ASP.NET 4.0, and then Ajax, all these things. So he's going to open up Visual Studio, and then he's going to code everything. He's going to get a very good application up and running maybe in a couple of weeks, right. So we have developers, and also we have the QA role. You guys hate him, right? You guys hate QAs, right? Yeah, I do, okay. Because see, normally when I'm leaving the office, the last person I want to concentrate is the QA. If he's sitting in this side, I won't look at this side. I'll take another shortcut and then I leave the office. Because he comes with a lot of problems, right? That's his job, because he wants to make sure whatever the releases we are giving to customer is fully tested, and no runtime errors, no bugs, no phone calls from the customer. So basically his objective is to make sure that zero defects or zero bugs applications goes to the customer. And then we have IT admin. We hate this guy also, because we are developers, right. We all love to have admin login and SA login to SQL Server, I do, I love that, but I don't get it, right? It's only in my home desktop, right? So IT admin, in other words, Alex, he holds the key to all these admin accounts. He never shared the domain admin account with me, he never shared the SA login password with me, and he never give access to IIS, right? He says, boss, you tell me what's really happening behind the scene, make sure that you're not doing unnecessary things in your application, and you show me what's happening in this application, then I'll go and deploy to the staging environment or the production environment. Again, it's his job, right? So we got to, work with these people. We got to work with the BA, we got to work with the QA, we got to work with the IT admin. This is our life, right? So now let's talk about how an actual product development or software development experience can be, enhanced, especially when it comes to deployment, how it can be enhanced with MS Deploy, right? So again, if I talk about the team, BA gets a cool idea on building applications. So he may come up with an idea, okay, TechEd is coming, why don't we build a small website, right, especially for the TechEd. That's a good idea, but who's going to do that, right? It's only Bill. So Bill will do that because Bill knows that application always works in his machine, right? Application always works in his machine because probably it's 4 GB, core to duo, enough hard disk space. Not because of that, right? Because he has loaded all the assemblies under the sun in his machine, right? Maybe Microsoft, maybe non-Microsoft, right? Whatever it is, he has loaded all the required tools and also unnecessary tools, right? Assemblies in his machine. So nothing will happen in his machine. Application will work perfectly in his machine, right? But not in QA's machine, not in staging server, right? So that's why you get, okay, unable to load X assembly, unable to load Y assembly, or conflict with the assemblies, right? So you get a lot of pop-ups, you get a lot of problems in the QA's machine, right? And when it comes to QA, he finds bugs in developers' code, right? And also QA's job is, because QA wants to do the testing quickly and she wants to submit the test report to developers, right? So she doesn't like, getting a complaint, okay, we didn't get the bug report, and because of that developers are idling and they're just enjoying and they're, busy with the coffee machine. So developers, testers always go quickly with the bug report, and also they expect the same thing from the developers. Fix it and give me quickly, right? Because I'm here, I'm waiting to test it again. So that's another problem we have. And IT admin again, he holds the key to the kingdom, basically for the staging and production and all the environment, and again he wants to know in and out of the application. So this is how it is right now, and this is how it's going to be. It's never going to change, right? So we'll get more and more roles coming into our development environment, right? So we'll have clear separations in between these roles. So it's really difficult to avoid this separation and play a one-man role, because developers like to start with a green valley, but it will never happen, okay? So this is the deployment environments we have. These are the deployment environments we have in a typical software development environment. So we'll have the debug environment. So that's my environment, your environment, right? We are developers. So we do everything in debug mode. We test it. We basically press F5. We test everything. We put the debug breakpoints, and we know what's happening. And then we have the testing environment. So this is basically QA's environment, right? So we need to get a release from my machine to QA's machine, and then she will test it. Finally, it goes to staging, and then pre-production, and finally production, right? So debug is under my control, right? I can do anything in debug environment. Testing is under QA's control, not in my control, right? And also the staging, pre-production and production is under IT admin's control, right? So we talk about 3 different people here, right? 3 different guys, and 3 different stakeholders. So, but we got to manage with it. So we need to make sure the deployment is smooth. So assume that we start the project today, or maybe a few weeks back, right? So 1 week back. So today I get an email from the BA saying, good, you have started developing the application, right? Website for the TechEd. So basically it's kind of a research project. Our VP is coming tomorrow or day after tomorrow, right? So can we get a demo, ready for day after tomorrow? So we would like to say no to him, but we can't say no to him, right? So we'll have to somehow get it done. So here there are two people involved. It's me, developer, right? I need to make sure I need to get that I get a release to the QA. So that is a second person. So QA also involved here, basically John. So Bill and John will be involved in this scenario, setting up a demo environment so that VP can go through all the features and probably we will be able to get some funding. Okay. So we have DevBox, right? So we have Visual Studio 2008 loaded and we have web applications, lot of security implemented, we have databases and we have lot of assemblies deployed to GAC, right? And also we have a lot of registry settings and also some com-interrupt calls. Don't worry, I don't have such application. I have very basic application because my focus is for the deployment, right? So we'll have an application like this at the end of a week, 1 week or 2 weeks of time. So now we need to get this deployed to the server, whatever it may be, demo or testing, right? First of all to QA server and then we need to set up a demo, right? So what we do is we basically do a publish and then IT admin get involved, right? So you know that the deployment not going to be very smooth because it works perfectly in my machine, not in the server, right? So then you get lot of errors. You get lot of errors and you will be running around and you will be releasing 10 to 15 releases from your machine to QA, again you are testing, again one more error has gone down, now okay, let's do another release, okay, now it has gone down to 8 and then 7, so you are releasing it, right? You are doing a lot of manual work. So we are going to basically do this quickly. So I'll switch over to my demo machine. So why I'm using another machine is basically I have loaded Windows 2008 here. So I have true IIS version running, IIS 7, okay. So let's do a quick deployment. So I have Visual Studio 2010 loaded. It's a basic web app, right? So I have a couple of pages here, default page, and also I have another page with a grid control. So to make you clear, to keep it very simple, right? I haven't added any advanced pages or complex pages, but to show you that it works not only with the default site template, it works with whatever the custom work you have done, whatever the custom or the complex logic you implement. What I have done is I have added a grid control and I have done a data binding with my own database with a small table called employees, right? So this works perfectly in my machine. So we know what normally we do, right? I'm in debug mode and I love the F5 key, right? So I have tested so many times, right? It works perfectly in my machine. Now it's time to give a release to QA. So what we should be doing ideally, right? So we should be working with this deployment configuration manager first of all, right? So I'm going to first get my exact deployment environment configured in the Visual Studio. So in one of my slides we had debug, QA, test, staging, pre-production and production, right? So you can set up the same thing in your Visual Studio because by default you get only the debug and release, right? By default you get only the debug and release, but you will have a lot of intermediate environments, deployment environments in your organization. So I have IIS loaded here, right? So I have some web applications. So do not worry about the SharePoint web applications, right? So I want you to concentrate on this demo site, or sorry, developer site. So this is basically the developer environment, right? So I'm using one PC to emulate the whole deployment scenario in an organization. So this is my developer environment. And also I have created another web application called testing, right? Testing. So assume that this testing web application is in another box, right? Just assume that. But in this case it's in the same box. But assume that this testing web application created in the tester server or in some other server. And also we have another site created that is for giving the demo to VP, right? So that will be another machine. It will be another machine, so third machine, right? So this is my machine. This is where I do all the development, testing, debug, FI and all these things. And then I need to get it deployed to QA's machine. This is the one, right? And then I need to get it deployed to the demo site, right? This could be a totally different machine. So I'm not going to do anything manually, right? So what I'm going to do is, I have a Visual Studio application here. So I will first of all replicate the same environment in my configuration manager by quickly going through this. Okay, I have here demo and then I have developer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create staging and testing and production, right? So I'll say quickly new. Please take a copy of the debug environment, right? And create something called staging. Okay, so this will be staging. Fine, and create one more thing. So that also will be a copy of debug environment. So this will be production, right? Done. So I have bunch of environments here. So it could be pre-production again, right? It could be QA. So it depends on your environment. So if you have 5, 6 intermediate deployment environments, get it configured in Visual Studio, right? So after that, what I'm going to do, so I'll come back here. First thing what I'm going to do is, I'm going to rebuild the solution to make sure that I don't have any errors. You should do that. Don't give any applications with bugs, right? So next thing what I'm going to do is, I'm going to double click this properties folder, or you can say right click the project and you can go to properties. Okay? So we are very familiar with this application and all, and just to show you that in the web tab, so this is basically an IIS application, right? This runs in a IIS site with the port 8001 in an application called TechEd Web. So that is a virtual directory. Okay? So everything runs here. It's not a file system website, because I want to show you all the features in terms of the deployment, because when we go for file system webs, there will be some features disabled in the deployment, MS deploy page, right? So the next interesting tab is package and deploy, package and publish, right? So this is where you're going to spend few minutes when you want to give a release to QA, whenever you want to give a release to demo people for the demo, right? So the first thing is, select the environment, right? I'll give a debug release because just after 1 week, right? And I want to make sure the debug symbols are included in just in case, right? If I get a problem, not in front of VP, right? But I can easily, even before that, I can tweak it and I can get it done and I can get it resolved. So I'm going to give a debug release for the demo purpose, right? So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to select what I'm going to deploy for the demo server. So I have 3 options, only files needed to run this application. That's perfect. And you have another option called all files in this project. So that will copy all the files, right? And I have third option, all files in this project folder. So last option will be really, it comes really handy whenever you want to take a copy of your project home and you want to do some work. So there are some other documentation, SRS documents and things like that as part of the solution. So you want to include them as well in your package, right? So you can go for the last option. So I'll stick to the first one. And here you have option to exclude the debug symbols. So that's what you should do when you go for the production deployment. You should exclude the debug symbols. So I'm not going to do that. Okay, anyway, I don't have anything in app data, so you can exclude that as well. So these are the 2 interesting checkboxes. Include all database configuration in deploy SQL tab. So I'm deploying my database, right, in a zip file. Second option, include all the IIS settings as part of this deployment, as part of this zip file, right? So all the database settings, all the configuration settings or authentication settings with regard to the app pool and which app pool it's using, right? So before I do this, let me show you one thing in IIS. So I told you I'm actually working here. So if I right click, I'll just go to basic settings here. See, I'm using ASP.NET v4.0 app pool. Okay, I'm using ASP.NET 4.0 app pool. And if you look at the demo site, so that's why I'm going to give a demo and no content at all, right? It's just a virtual directory, nothing is there. So if you look at this, here basic settings, it uses demo site, right. So what I want to do actually, I want to deploy the app pool settings as well with the authentication, because app pool should have minimum read permission, right, in order to run the application, right. So I'm going to deploy all these things. Fine. So include everything, app pool settings. Okay, I'm not worried about all these things. So I'll now go to the deploy SQL tab. So this is where I can say import from the web.config. So I have the web.config. My web.config has two connection strings. One is the default one you get when you create a new web app, ASP.NET, which is pointing to SQL Express, right. But actually I'm getting some data from my database through a connection string called contoso connection string, right. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to actually check this and also this, right. So take a copy of the database as well and put it into the zip file and deploy, right. So finally, this is a connection string for the source. So we are getting all the information from this, okay. And okay, so let me exclude this first. We'll just do a basic demo only with the SQL Express thing, okay. And then what I'm going to do is, here you have option again. So let me hide this. So when in the SQL tab, what you want to deploy, is it schema only or schema and data or data only. So since this is a demo, I would love to push some data along with the zip file, right. So done. I saved the configuration settings, right, everything is done. So next what I'm going to do is, I'm going to go into my solution explorer. Here I have option called create package, right. So I'll click on this. So when I say create package, it's basically running the MS deploy behind the scene, MS deploy version 1.0, right, 1.1 also out, okay. So I'm running version 1.0 because I'm running beta, not the RC. So it basically runs a lot of functions inside. What he has done, he has collected all the files from the solution and also went into the database, collected the schema and everything, right, and it created a package for me, right. So the package is here, So since I'm in Windows Server, it doesn't give me a link, right, it's not a hyperlink, but if it is in Windows 7, so that's what we use for development, right. So here you get a hyperlink where you can click and you can go into this particular folder. So what I'm going to do, I can rely on run, I can go to the folder. So this is my zip file, TechEd Web, right. So I'll just double click, so you get the content, right. You get a weird folder structure anyway, right. So you get everything included in this package. You get all the pages, you get all the config files, you get all the binaries, you get all the connection string settings, you get all the IIS settings, app pool settings, everything. Cool? So we created the zip file. So we are going to hand over it to the Alex, IT guy, the guy we hates a lot. Okay? So that's fine. So IT guy, Alex, going to definitely like you from today, because what he has to do is simply come into IIS, right? Come to demo site. So this is where we are going to set the demo for VP, right? Here in IIS 7 we have option called import application. So this is the UI, graphical way of doing the importing, right? Or configuring your package or your deployment unit in the IIS. So this feature, this GUI will not be available in IIS 6, right? So then we'll have another option, alternative to do that. So if you have IIS 7, you can easily click export application, then you get another GUI, right? So what I'm going to do is, okay, so it basically point to a file system thing. So let me go to, sorry, it's import application. I click the wrong link, okay. So I'll put the URL here, or the path, sorry, and then I can point to the zip file, right. So that's what Alex is going to do, and he can say next. Now see here, the beauty here is, see, you have all the things included as part of your package. You have IIS configuration. It says go ahead and create a IIS application for this guy first, and then go and deploy all the content from this package, right. So you can see what are the advanced settings available here. So you have some things, special things. The most important thing or the feature I like a lot is this what if component in advanced settings, right. So by default what if is true, sorry, false, right. So Alex can go ahead and make it as true, right. So what Alex is going to do, he is going to change it to true and say next. So what will happen in that case, it basically going to run through the configuration process, but he is not going to do a proper configuration or actual configuration or deployment to this new web application. It is basically trial scenario. He is going to test it, right, see whether we get any problems after deploying this application. So this is what if scenario. So what if I deploy this, right. So you can make it true. So you can see, make sure that there won't be any conflicts after deploying this web application, because Alex doesn't trust developers, right. And then he can come back, make it true, false, and then he can do the actual deployment. So I'm not going to change it. So I'm leaving it for you to try out. Say next here, and here we get a chance to do the configuration. Now here I have to do a configuration. I have to change the configuration, right. But ideally you won't be able to do that, because it's not required to do that. You can simply say next. So it deploy to the demo environment, it will point to the same database, it will point to the same server, and it will create a IIS application. But in my case, I'm going to change it, especially the database name, right, because I have a database with the same name already. So I'm going to just add one here, right, to the connection string, and this is the connection string again, right. So for the context also I'll add one here, right. So I want to make sure that I'm not going to get any errors because of the rewriting thing, and I'm going to say next. So it says the application you are installing require .NET application pool. Do you want to change this application? Yes, right, and he is doing his work. Done. I deployed. Isn't it cool? Thanks. The package was successfully deployed. This is what happened. So you get details all the time. Alex is happy, right? He knows what's happening behind the scene. And one more thing, do you think Alex will like this, the GUI tool? He will like it, right? But sometimes he will say, okay, I don't know what is happening behind this UI. Can't I see what's really happening behind this UI? Can't I see all the scripts, all the commandlets happening behind this UI? Yes, we can do it in command mode, right? So that's the alternative, as I told you earlier, for IIS 6 guys, right? So if you have IIS 6, if you are deploying to IIS 6, you don't have this GUI. So you'll be basically using a command line tool, and then Alex will be able to change some parameters in Notepad, and then he can go to DOS mod. If he likes DOS prompt, he'll be able to do all these things, right? So I'll say finish. So now if you look at the demo site, cool, techedweb_deploy, it's been deployed. So I'll click the browse button and let it browse, do the pre-compilation and all, so that I can show you the output. So this is super easy when it comes to setting up a demo site, when it comes to deploying to another server. This is what we need to do, nothing else, right? So this is where we use MS Deploy. We can simply go to Solution Explorer. We can double click our projects properties folder. We will be basically playing with these two tabs, right? These are the two tabs we should be worried. And finally, we need to say right click and create the package. It will give you a zip file. So now we are using zip file concept or the cabinet files, in other words concept, to do the deployment. So everything including IIS settings, registry settings, database contents, everything will be included here, okay? So I'll switch over to slides because I want to discuss another scenario, right? I hope most of you guys work team build environments, right? Team foundation server, right? Because I have not integrated with TFS. So you will not be able to take source at home in your environment, right? So you need to check into server and go, scenario like that. So if it is team build, if there is a team build environment, probably the QA guy will say, why don't you, give me a release every night, right? Why don't you automate this? So why can't you drop a release in a zip file format, right, into a shared folder, so that I can, come every day in the morning and I can deploy that, right? So to do that, you will be basically working with the team build. So unfortunately, I don't have team build installed here, but I have got some screenshots for you, right? So what we are going to do is we are going to basically go into the Team Explorer. We are going to right click, say new build definition, right? New build definition, and then we get a tool with, few tabs. So we'll be basically filling all these screens here, right? So at the right side, we have the general tab. Give a name here to your build, and then go to trigger tab and see how you want to, how frequently you want to generate a release or a build to the QA, right? It could be a manual, it could be a CI, or it could be a rolling thing. It could be running on a schedule every day or every morning, right? And also you can go to workspace and you can configure what you are going to include. In my case, primary active project, right? And also when you go to build defaults, you can see, you can specify here / where you are going to drop it, your drop off folder, right? It could be a file server, and in the process, right, we get a lot of properties where you can go and configure the build process, right? Because you wouldn't, want to do build every time when you press F5 or when you say rebuild, and you didn't want to have a release, right? So you want to get it configured. So you have a lot of options here. You can configure that, and also what you're going to do once you do that, once you fill the all these pages, you can right click the Team Explorer and you can say queue a new build, and then it get queued, right? And then what we can do is we can simply, once it's queued, we can come here. There will be a hyperlink. We can click that, and QA guy will be able to see, right? In the shared folder. So we have a folder called publish websites, right? So he can go inside and then he'll get the zip file. So QA has to come and check he has to every day check this particular folder in the file share, whether we have a new release of published websites, right? If it is updated, get a copy and deploy. So it's easy, right? So the next scenario is we talk about deploying to staging or pre-production, right? So when we do this, we have to do a few things, right? So when we talk about deploying to staging or pre-production, the main thing what we should do is we should exclude the debug symbols, we should disable the debug feature, right? So we have to make sure that we are getting a proper release, right? And also, if a database is included as part of your deployment package zip file, right? So you may want to exclude the data, only the schema, right? So let the people who is using pre-production to go through the application and add some records. So why I'm going to deploy all my dirty test records along with my package. So that's the scenario. So how we can do that? So first of all, if you look at my web.config, see, it's not just a single web.config. I already have two web.configs called web.debug.config, web.release.config. The reason is Visual Studio 2010 will give you two deployment environment automatically, that is debug and release. So what's the first exercise I did? I basically replicated our deployment environment in the VS 2010. I added staging and testing and pre-production or whatever, right? So I want to have web.config files for each environment, because in debug in my machine I have everything enabled. So when I go to the staging, I want to disable a few options. For example, you may have, okay, let's do a small demo, right? So you may have a couple of app settings added in your debug version here under app settings, right? So you'll have a couple of app settings so that you're generating a log file in your local C drive, right, in my PC. So if something goes wrong, you can go through the log file. But when you go for a pre-production deployment, right, so we have to remove this. Okay, let me increase the font size. Cool. How did I do that? Harish went through, tools, options, increasing the font size. I did it quickly, right? VS 2010 features. It's not a deployment feature, right? Okay, so this might not work, right, when we go for the pre-production, right? So we need to make sure it's pointing to / some shared folder, right, and then creating a log file. So we may have to change this, settings, app settings, connection string settings, and we may have to exclude some settings from the web.config when it comes to release or pre-production release, right? So how we are doing it right now? You are doing it manually, right? You are doing it manually. You go through the web.config, you remove some stuff, you comment some stuff, deploy, you get an error in the web.config, go again and see what has happened, because it's case sensitive and all these things. So what we are going to do is, I'm not going to do that. I'll simply go to my solution explorer, right click the web.config file, say add config transforms, right? So then I get 4 config files, right, after I do that. Now I get 2 new config files automatically. One called web.production.config and web.staging.config. So you can have 5, 6, 7, 10, n number of config files in your solution, right? That's easy, super easy. So what I want to do is, when I go for staging deployment, or in other words, let's stick to production, right? So I'm going to do the production deployment. So when I go to production environment, so what is this config file is actually a subset of my root web.config, right? So what we are going to do here is, we are going to add only the transformation, right? Only the transformation. Okay. So what is transformation means? Behind the scene we use something called XDT, right? XML document transformation. So it works not only for web.config, it works for any XML file. It works for any XML file, right? Assume that you have customers.xml in solution. When you go for release, you want to do something, right, in the content. You can add a transformation there, right? So it basically uses the known technologies. All of you know XPath, XQuery, right? It's not a new thing for us, right? So it's basically use XPath behind the scene. So we get some switches, we get some snippets. We can say, okay, go through and find out the log key and then replace with this, or go ahead and find out the debug key, please remove it for me, right? Because I'm going to do a production environment, so no manual work. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to come here. So I have in system.web compilation XSD transformation, right? So this is the guy, take care of everything, right? XSD : transformation, remove attributes, debug. So it's already there because it understands the name, right? So I'm in the production, right? It basically, he knows that this is not the debug, it's something else. So it removes the debug attribute, and also we'll be able to do something like this, right? We'll be able to do something like this. We can simply put this also as part of our, okay, it should come here. Okay. So we are going to say, go and find out the app setting section. So I'll reduce the font a little bit so you can see what's happening, or I'll put it into another line, right? So you can say, go and find out the key called log folder, right? Log folder in my web.config, I have the log folder. It's pointing to C:\build logs, right? I'll say, go and find out and replace with X. X could be a map drive. It could be a mapped shared drive, right? And I'm going to put all my logs into this folder. So these are the switches we get in order to work with this XDT, right? So there are a lot of switches. I'm not going to show. We get replace, we get match, we get remove, and all of this, right? And not only that, see, if you are lazy, right, like me, you can simply take a copy of this web.config file, whole thing, paste it here, Control-C, Control-V, and just add one entry at the end called XDT: transform equal to replace, right? That's it. Replace, and then change manually here what you want to do, right? So that's also possible, right? So I have told him what to do, right, as part of the production, and then what I can do, I can simply go to my project properties again, make sure you select the production as your build, right? I'll go to package and publish first. So I'm in the production. Yes, exclude the debug symbols. I don't want debug symbols. And also, yeah, include, deploy all of this and go to deploy SQL, right? And I'm going to import from the web.config, okay? And also, here I need to say, do not deploy the data, it is schema only. It is schema only. And not only that, when we go for production deployment, right, maybe your DBA will give you a special script saying, right, Alex, go ahead and run this also as part of the deployment. After you do all these things, make sure you run this script also, right. So Alex might be doing it manually right now. Actually, he is doing it manually. So what we can do, we can go to add script and we will be able to basically add any SQL script to this. This has a very, this comes really handy if you integrate SQL Server 2008 database projects also in your development experience. How many of you use SQL Server 2008 database project? How many? Okay, decent amount of guys, right? And also, you know, there is a new project type will be coming, right, with the SQL Server 2008 release 2 and Visual Studio 2010 data type application project. How many of you heard about that? DACPAC, data type, okay, very good, right? So this add scripts and working with the differential deployment and all, right, all these features comes really handy when we work with the SQL Server 2008 database project and also data type application project, right? So it will definitely see what's there in the project in the database, right? I have a table called employee, I have added another table right now, just get that table schema and add it. So that's what happens, okay? So I can create a package here. Simply I can create a package and then what I can do is, okay, let him create. And also I quickly show you that command line thing because you may have IIS 6. How many of you have IIS 6 in your environment? Yeah, we still use IIS 6, right? Okay, so what if I have IIS 6? Because you don't get this GUI for import, right? So that's where you need to go to, okay, let me get the latest version of the package. Okay, still adding database. Okay, because I couldn't change the database name again. So I have the replace option, replace scenario here. So I'll stick to the earlier version, right? I have a, okay, sorry. I have a zip file already generated. So this is the one I was talking about. techadweb.deploy. It's a command line utility. It's a command line utility, right? So what you can do is, you can go to command prompt. So if you have IIS 6, right? If you have IIS 6, I'm going to say go to, where is that? Okay, it's in C TechEd developer. Okay, so basically we can simply say paste. Okay, so I don't have that in. Sorry, wrong keystroke. Control C. Okay. And we have okay, developer slash techadweb slash obj slash package. So I spent a lot of time with the cd command, don't worry, right? So I have here techadweb.deploy.cmd, right? So this is the file I talked about. I simply say techadweb.deploy.cmd, right? It says okay, I have two options to work with this. What do you want to do? Either T or Y, right? Slash T is nothing but what if scenario, because in IIS 7 you get graphically to enable that. Do a trial installation, don't do actual installation, right? If everything goes fine, I'll go ahead and deploy. So here you can simply say /t and deploy, enter. So it's do a trial deployment. If you really want to do the deployment, then you can say /y and then you can enter. So for those who has IIS 6 in the environment, so this will be the scenario. And also now let's talk about the deploying to the web farm. So assume that I got my production server set up, everything works, everything fine, no runtime errors, everyone happy, right? So how do we deploy to another server? So if you select the IIS server name here, right? In the IIS, here you have export server package, export server package. See what's happening? It's basically detecting all my application, including all this SharePoint and this and that. So you'll be able to configure what are the components you'll be able to deploy. So it's basically I can take the whole configuration and deploy to another server. Isn't it cool? You're not doing it anything manually, right? Okay. So let me go to my slide deck and see what I have. Yeah. So it's a very good thing how this transformation happens, because you may be you may want to do a lot of transformation for your own XML files. So it's not very straightforward out of the box thing. Remember, web.config is part of Visual Studio. So Visual Studio understand the web.config and things like that. So transformation happens easily. But if you are introducing your own XML and you want to do the transformation with XDT, right? So you have to do few things manually. So this is how the transformation works. You have the web.staging.config, and then you have web.config, and you have the switches, right, called here transform, and the locator will help me to identify if there are multiple occurrences. Then it works with the enumeration concept. We have an array and then 0 index enumerator, right, and then finally convert or transform the web.config file. So finally we are into production. So this is where we go and talk about the publish environment, right. So here, so when we are ready with all these things, finally we can go for a publish option as well, right. So we have the publish web dialog box where we can create a profile and save it. So let me create production publish or something, right, and the server URL. So depend on the mechanism you use or publish method. So it supports web deploy, MS deploy, FTP, file system, right, Xcopy stuff. So if it is MS deploy, then you will be giving http://localhost as your service URL. And what is the application you want to create automatically? I want to create localhost/tech@web. That's it. So that will be the final URL. And the untrusted certificate credentials and all these things. And also if you want to specify your physical path, you will be able to do that. And finally you can say publish here. Save this. Okay, we need a slash. Okay, we will say production/tech@web final or whatever. Give whatever the namings you want. Save, right, and say publish. So then it will ask the username and password, because I am going through the service local host the default service URL. So I can give the username and password to use internally for the MS deploy, and he'll do the deployment. So this is how we can publish. Okay, and this is how it works. MS deployment in VS 2010. So we have your developer environment. We have all these files, right? So VS 2010 will basically take everything into demo, staging or production environment in form of a web package. So we will do this packaging MS deploy, right? So again this package could be targeted for a web farm, or maybe you can take it as a backup, or you can deploy to any environment. So this is how web deployment experience going to be with the VS 2010 and also the MS deploy. So our new team, right, will be doing all these things basically. right? So we'll be able to deploy our web packages including DB, including IIS settings, and also we'll be able to do import, export and all these things through the GUI in IIS 7 and also the command lines in IIS 6. And also we will be able to configure the build definition, setting up a nightly builds if you have the team build environment, and also we will be able to customize our developer environment by adding the XDT concepts into your project, right? Bunch of web.config files, right? And finally you will be able to do the one-click publish as I shown you, right? So that's the new way of the deployment. Right, I have only 2 minutes left, sorry 3 minutes left. So I think Harish will help me to take some questions. If you guys have any questions in MS Deploy.
Hi, I have a question. So basically we are running web farms based on shared configuration. So we have 2 pools, staging and production, and they all point to a file server basically where they get their code from. So is the idea that the publish will deploy via the web server to the file share, or do we do it directly using MS Deploy?
Actually, we should be doing it through the web server, right? So we'll be basically taking a exported package from the IIS, which we have already put it and tested in a server, and the exported application will be deployed to the web farm.
So actually, like all our production web servers point to the same copy of code on a file share server, right? That's what shared configuration is about. The configuration settings for IIS come from a single location, so does the code. So how do you deploy to such a thing via a web server? Isn't it redundant? Wouldn't it be easier to just copy the code directly to the file share location and repoint IIS?
Okay, so when we talk about the web farm deployment, so what exactly we are doing behind the scene will be basically pushing the configuration of IIS into the other application, and will be pointing to the same code base, right? So the concept is same. So what we are doing here is, what MS Deploy is doing here is, now how do you push your current configuration from one server to another web server when it comes to web farm deployment? Right now you do it manually, right?
No, we actually just push it to the file share server, and it always points to one particular folder, so it gets the updated config directly.
Okay, so basically you are hosting your configuration in a file server, right?
Yes.
So with the MS Deploy concept, what we are going to do is, we'll be having a package, so we'll be basically getting the zip and also the cabinets based deployment implemented for the web farm deployment. So it will be one package with all the configuration. We are not going to use the file server concept, so we'll be using that package which contains all the configuration, push it through that.
Right. So if I have say 20 servers in my production environment, I have to push to 20 different servers, right? Basically, but if I'm using shared config, I have to push once.
See, there will be a problem. See, this is designed for scenarios like this also. Now think about, first server you deploy, right, with the content and also settings to database in the web.config, and you have another settings in the app settings sections and all. So same thing will work for the second server, right? Assume that the third server, in the third server, you don't want to push all these connection strings, and you don't want to push any app settings or things like that, and you don't want to deploy anything related to the database configuration and all. So then same package will not work, or same file server deployment will not work. So that is why we can go to MS Deploy, we can have different versions.
Isn't that the point of shared configuration, that all web servers in a particular farm have the same configuration, same code? Like, isn't that why it was like, isn't that the point of shared configuration?
Sure. Can you take this question offline? I just have a couple of announcements to make here.
Right.
Couple of housekeeping announcements. There is going to be demo extravaganza happening in the Kalinga Hall, the keynote hall, where there will be a lot of cool demo stuff that happens there. A lot of prizes to be won, so you want to be there after this session. And tomorrow, all the web sessions are happening in the Kalinga Hall, the keynote hall. Okay, so all the web sessions tomorrow is going to be in the Kalinga Hall. Okay, so any other questions?
Yeah, actually, if you're not convinced, talk to me after the session, right? So we'll talk about in detail. So it's kind of a new concept, right? So I'll answer you. Any other questions?
Yes, just I have one question.
Yeah.
Yeah, in this MS build is very good for like a fresh deployment. Okay. In case of like a recurring deployment on daily basis. Just I have only 1-2 file changes. Some bug I have fixed and I want deployment. In that scenario, how it will work? I want only some selected file, what I have changed.
So that's where the differential concept comes into the scene, right? So you will basically create a new package, give the new zip file to him that will have only the changes, not the complete thing. That will have only the changes.
Only changes file?
Only the changes, and it has a reference to the earlier version. So it will do basically a comparison. So what is already there, what is there in the new package, it will do only the differential deployment.
Means we can compare with the CAP file also?
Basically tool will do the comparison, not us, right. So MS deploy, the deployment tool will do the comparison with the previous deployment and also the current zip file, and then it will decide, okay, what to include in this particular deployment version.
Okay, that's all.
Good question. See, we go and deploy and we want to go revert back to another version, right? I mean, we need to come back to a previous version and kind of an uninstallation, right? So is there a support? There is no graphical tool or such to do that. So that is where we should combine our snapshot server concept. So if you are certain, okay, this is an important version and this is a kind of a milestone in my deployment,